It's my great pleasure to host this esteemed panel of industry experts to dive into a topic that I'm passionate about. Data Speaks, the value of financial reporting, automation, and digitization. I'm Chris Gately, your host, and also Chief Revenue Officer of Paradigm Consulting, where we enable many Global 500 customers in their digital journey. I'm also a passionate advocate of digitization and a lifelong seeker of new technologies to enable it. With me today are Philip Naifong and Rodriguez Sanchez of Informatica and Asmath Pasha of Paradigm Consulting. Gentlemen, please introduce yourselves to the audience, tell them about yourselves, about your experience in automation, digitization, and the love that you have for it. Phil?
Thanks, Chris. So Philip Naifong with Informatica. I'm the sales director for reference and finance. Come here with a background of 20 plus years in the finance area of helping companies go from wrangling data to managing data and getting their hands around data, as well as lifting themselves from their current architecture to their new cloud architecture. So look forward to the discussion today and some of the panelists' thoughts.
Thanks. I think I'll go next. So my name is Rodrigo Sanchez-Brede. I'm a 6-year Informatica veteran. I'm essentially managing our partnership with Snowflake since 2018. So I've had this sort of front row seat to our revolution, and I look forward to discussing further with you guys. And let me pass it on to Asmath.
Thank you, Rodrigo. My name is Asmath Pasha with Paradigm, and I'm the Chief Digital Officer based out of Chicago. A little bit about Paradigm. Paradigm Technology is an award-winning leader in digital and business transformation. We have been around for 25 years and servicing Fortune 500 organizations. We are a proud established platinum partner with solid go-to-market capabilities with Informatica and thought and advisory leaders with Forbes Technology Council. As a technology evangelist myself, I'm responsible for driving Paradigm's end-to-end data management, advanced analytics, cloud and digital product engineering pillars and practices across the firm. And we are driving our Power of Paradigm go-to-market strategy with Informatica and to our customers and partners. I'm really excited to be here and look forward for a great session with our partners here. Thank you. Chris?
Excellent. Thank you, gentlemen. Hey, let's dig right into it. Let's start off with the first question. What is data estate modernization and why is it related to the CFO's organization? Let me take the second half of that question first. Companies have spent trillions of dollars in digitization with only a small fraction invested in the finance team. The amazing part is the CFO and their teams are in the middle of all the critical information, financials, risk, operational, compliance data. They are driving and delivering the organization's KPIs, and their folks are at the crossroads and the cross-functional and cross-business unit impact of all of that data. But not enough technology past an ERP system or multi-tabular Excel sheets are still used by these teams. In fact, as I was talking with one of our CFOs yesterday that we work with, he considers Excel to be his most mission-critical application because it synthesizes all of his data and all of the decisions for the organization are made from it. These folks, the CFOs, the finance folks, they really need to understand how data modernization is enabled, and it's enabling technologies like AI, ML, NLP, how these things deliver for them. Using these will make them leaders in the art of the possible discussion with their peers. It'll also help them reduce risk and reduce costs. Ultimately, these teams really need to change their legacy processes, leverage the power of these new technologies, ultimately enabling their business partners and clients to transform their user experience and their deliverables. That's why data estate modernization is so important to the CFO. Asmath, can you help frame up what this modernization is?
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Data estate modernization, if you look at from a hypothesis standpoint, is the transformation of people, process, and technology, and the organization's relationship with data to support the level of business innovation and change required to remain market leading in the modern world. A critical success factor for organizations is the adoption of and exploitation of cloud platform, automation, robotics, AI, and advanced analytics at scale. So data estate modernization is about the enablement and empowerment of data powered by cloud, AI, and advanced analytics, right? So from a paradigm standpoint, what is our take on data estate modernization is we understand our customers well, their organization objectives and pain points like any other business domains. Our customers thrive on data. There is a strong desire and need to ingest, store, and curate large volumes of data from a variety of sources at near real-time speeds. Our data estate modernization solution is based on accelerated pillars that enable data protection, reusability, backup, and most importantly, effective management of compute and storage, which are core tenets to migrate workloads and help with cost takeout. This results in improved ROI with 0% loss of functionality with minimal investment. So from a survey that was taken recently by one of the large firms, right, the survey results where the key reasons for data estate modernization are business adoption, production grade technology, and the operating model.
Excellent. Thanks, Asmat. You brought up some really good points there. As we continue to look at data estate modernization, we're we still also have to look at what are the industry sentiments about this, right? And what's the urgency for modernization? Phil, you've worked with teams for years in finance, enabling their data journey. But what are your thoughts here?
Well, I think, when you look at finance has naturally gone through a big transformation this past, let's say, year. With some of the pieces that we've gone from a market standpoint in COVID. So normally finance would lock themselves into the building. They would be sitting in rooms together. Yes, I mean, there were people that work remotely, but most organizations were still sitting in an office. With the impact of what's taken place, we've seen that transformation of people working from home, being less available, although they may be working more hours, they're less available to each other. Because things become more single-threaded. They're not able to collaborate as easily. The impacts to the data, being able to get to the right data in the right amount of time in order to be able to make decisions. All of those things have hastened for companies to want to be able to get better visibility, drive down costs, do more with less, reduce risk to what they're trying to report on, while the whole time becoming data servants to the rest of the organization. So in the office of the CFO, they're not just worried about how do I get those regulated reports out, how do I produce my plan and my budget, but they're also partners to the other fingers of the organization. So a lot of that urgency is how to be able to support their business with a changing model and get themselves prepared for, as we start to come out of this time, where they're going to take advantages of those acquisitions. And how they're going to reorganize their business to be more fluid and more actionable as they continue to move forward.
Yeah, and to just add into what Phil just mentioned, the catalyst for the change is the speed of change itself, right? So if you're looking at an average lifespan of an S&P 500 company is now less than 20 years down from 60 years in the 1950s, calling for a radical change in strategies and business models. So pretty much we are here to make the customer more of a data-powered organization. For those purposes, nearly 1 out of 3 financial services institutions that we talk to say that legacy data platforms are biggest obstacles to improving their data management and analytical capabilities. Enterprise, IT, consumer ease of use and flexible deployment are the top business considerations for a new data management and analytical capabilities. Even with the push to shed the legacy systems and modernize IT operations, to this day, there are still organizations that are allocating up to about 80% of their IT budgets to legacy maintenance. So the key thing here is to making them more data powered, address the speed of change, and innovate the business required for customer expectation.
That's really interesting when you talk about that, because some of the big struggles that I've seen with different customers is definitely that siloed data. And a lot of times that siloed data drives not just a large amount of inefficiency, but it drives a lot of people month over month, quarter over quarter, year over year, doing a lot of redundant tasks that sometimes leads to inaccurate information coming across the organization. So that is a huge thing that as companies continue to move forward, is that urgency is to do more with less, as I mentioned before, but it's also to reduce that risk. A lot of cost gets eaten up because of these tasks, gets eaten up within audit. So the cleaner that you can make it, the better, the more governed you can make it, the more streamlined process and automation that you give the business people to have insight and make sure the data is valid, the less costly it becomes, not just to lowering the man hours and the effort, but also to those audit costs that companies are continually trying to find ways to bring down and re-leverage those assets in different ways. So it was a great point.
Thank you. And
that's a great point, gentlemen.
Yeah.
You two have really hit on a couple of key things, especially that, as you talk about that real-time visibility and data servants, that speed of change, that radical change that needs to take place, and that data-powered organization. If you look at, for example, one company that we worked with, a Fortune 100 company, we were able to help them with their speed of change by changing helping their finance team with data integration using Snowflake, Informatica, and Paradigm to help them move from a 15-day close to a 24-hour close in real time, providing those real-time decisioning capabilities, which is really impactful. But that kind of goes to my next question. And Phil, maybe you can lead this off for us. But why does the finance office or the CFO care about this data modernization track?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, finance is kind of the hub of the organization. So they sit right in the middle. And as part of sitting in the middle, they have to deal with every domain that goes across the company is measurable and accountable for some sort of report, P&L, or information that helps them make a management decision. So even though finance themselves may not be publishing the data, they're providing the tools, the strategies, and the insights on how to be able to manage that data to get consistency across the organization and also get that data in the time period that they need it. So there's a lot of different requirements that the CFO has to be able to align across his organization. And it's not just, I need to get this regulated report, and I need to give this to the SEC, and I need to give this to the management reporting, but it's all the way down to the operational P&Ls that you look at by region, by location. When you look at healthcare, you start looking at things like by procedure, you start looking at financial services, and you start looking at revenue by region and revenue by location and type of customers that they're managing. So there's a lot of different types of analytics that goes on that the house of the CFO is responsible for empowering their business so that they can make better, quicker decisions, which are going to drive and lift revenue opportunities. So it's, getting to know your client, getting to know the data, and then bringing all of those things together gives the CFO a lot more reasons on why they need to be managing and looking over and curating this data for fit for purpose for the business.
Those are really good points. That's why you're working with a lot of our CFOs in helping them restructure their entire, data gathering, data reporting, and those kind of things. What are some of your thoughts there?
So Chris is basically going down to what the business wants. They want to simplify, modernize, industrialize, and re-envision, right? Earlier, I was talking about being data powered. What does that mean? We have to peel the onion and look at the three pillars that makes one data powered. One is powering business capabilities, looking at new business routes with your line of business to go ahead and market, right? Transforming customer experience and having that intimacy with your consumers. Innovation without constraint, transforming operational processes and insight. So that's power of business capabilities. Next is delivering business benefits, right? How secure your trusted your data is, accelerating the speed of development, empowering the business through self-service analytics, and reducing the cost of ownership, right? And then once you have powered your business capabilities, then you've talked about business benefits. Now you look at making your organization more data powered by talking about that technology and enablement, which is innovate, leverage the elastic compute and storage from the cloud, and transform the speed and scalability of the platform, and look at data ops and DevOps principles to optimize and make your platform more automated. And then on top of it, look at doing elastic resourcing to fully exploit the agility offered to elastic compute and storage. So if you have done business capabilities, you got your business benefits delivered, you can talk about data and technology enablement. So that's the entire transformation journey where your leadership priorities have shifted to business priorities and then rolled into the technology side from an enablement standpoint.
I love the way you two really tied the business value and the impact that it's going to have in the technology this technology promotes. There's a lot of products and technologies and process. There's, what products, technologies, and processes, enable some of this modernization. Asmath, you're a master at these technologies. What are some of your thoughts around where this technologies that enable this?
So pretty much there are quite a bit of products in the market, right? We have some strong go-to-market, and we have done a lot of research, right? Where each individual platform or product has the pluses and the cons and all that stuff. But keeping the product and the technology stack separate, we have to look at what is driving that. Scaling up your on-prem to the cloud, integrating and having a unified ecosystem with how you're going to do your CI/CD pipelining of data, looking at cost, right? Looking at how the upfront cost to procure and have it all installed, and then look at the next 3 years, your journey map, where you can bring that cost savings to the customer. And I also talked about the compute and storage, which are tightly coupled. You have to look at an elastic compute mechanism going to the data cloud, like products like Snowflake, and leverage Informatica's infrastructure heavy on the cloud side, such as IICS, and making those data estate modernization stories successful for our customer.
Rodrigo, did you have some thoughts there?
Absolutely. I want to sort of echo some of the things that Asma and Phil are saying. And if you step back and maybe take a bit of a broader view, really what we're talking about here is the need to, on the one hand, modernize and transform your business, right? Really, particularly in finance, it's almost become a trite statement, but data is the new asset class, right? And so you want to make sure that you have the ability to inject this new asset class and leverage it, not just for financial purposes, but also as the hub of the organization in a way that you can inject data into how the rest of the organization makes decisions. So that's sort of the very clear business benefit. And obviously, when you think about cloud and the advantages that Asma was talking about in terms of, essentially infinite compute, infinite storage, which give you elasticity, and essentially turn the problem of information dissemination more of a problem of access control rather than information shipping or data shipments. At the same time, you still want to watch the bottom line, right? And so the biggest advantage, of course, that you get from cloud as well, simultaneously, is cost management and cost control. So instead of spending a lot of your resources on managing a stack of software on top of hardware, you spend 80% of your time actually dealing with the business problems, working with the data, managing the data, controlling your data. And in that way, you sort of get the best of both worlds. You get sort of the high agility of this new world where essentially capacity is no longer a constraint, but you also get the ability to have sort of control and make sure that you're doing things in an orderly, auditable fashion, so that you get sort of that sweet spot of high agility and high control at the same time.
Right. And to add to what Rodrigo mentioned, our Finance 360 application provides strategic value and becomes an important game changer as we launch it on our partnered ecosystem. And clearly we see Informatica and Snowflake to have the network and reach, plus more capabilities than any other cloud providers that we know of, right? So let's look at a simple data ecosystem of a typical banking institution prior to moving to the cloud. For serverless multi-cloud data integration, Informatica cloud data integration allows to connect to thousands of data sources and runs integration at scale. Business value-wise, zero overhead and zero coding. With Snowflake Data Cloud, zero database management and administration, it's an actual game changer, right? And here we see source data is flowing through the data lake using streaming, batch processing as source systems are modernized and enabled for event-driven data. So having a robust architecture platform that is high performing with time scale, security, and pay-as-you-go compute capacities is going to be a critical for success. Yeah.
You know, Asmath, one of the things when you talk about Finance 360, F360, is also putting users in a position where they get better visibility, better control, better insights. And as they get ready to manage and change how data gets transformed and the business rules and the hierarchies and the different business perspectives that happen across the organization, being able to allow the business to have those insights and see them and be a part of that change process. Make sure that not only when you're moving the data, transforming the data, but now the business gets trust into it. So it's also about empowering the adoption of what the business is really wanting, and that's a better end result. You know, to be able to use their data with confidence.
Gentlemen, those are great points. Now, if I'm out there thinking, as one of the participants out here, I'm thinking, you know, cool technologies. I understand why the urgency, but how do I get started on, you know, the journey to data estate modernization with Paradigm, Informatica, Snowflake, or other enabling technologies? No, Asmath, you know, as our CDO, even I think this morning we had a conversation with a client about this particular topic, but what do you start off the discussion of how do we get started? Where do you start? What are the things that really enable this?
Thank you, Chris. So we at Paradigm provide guidance with a set of guardrails and principles of what our customers should do and shouldn't do and what to ignore. So we have to look at what are the established clear measures to help ensure ongoing success for their data estate modernization journey, right? So we look at a minimum viable technology, focus on being great with few technology stack, make it more business centric. So business domain perspective helps schema alignment with business versus business alignment with schema. Commodity ingestion, create a factory model to drive ingestion into a commodity to support good governance. Automation and cost management, that's very critical. That's how you would win the customer. Work on cost takeout as a value add, scaling down on the cloud versus scaling up. Technology-led conversations with technology adoption. Adding new technology for sake of addition shouldn't be the objective of the conversation. And look at consumption models. Reduce consumption, not limited to design for single or limited consumption tool shouldn't be a goal. So having said that, I just want to really quickly summarize the approach that I call it the ABC approach, which is discover, design, and industrialize, right? You start small and scale up. So from a discovery standpoint, we look at the strategy vision for our customer. We look at the data estate modernization strategy, which is cloud, IT, security strategy, put the value map, look at that roadmap, what the customer has, make the conversation much more business value driven, do the business case, use case by use case approach, then launch on the platform that the customer has, or we'll help them choose towards that modernization journey, and then help do the delivery and then more scale it up from a run and monitor standpoint. So it's very simple, discover, design, start small and scale up. Thank you, Chris.
No, that's great thoughts, Asmath. Rodrigo, Phil, what are your thoughts on the journey itself? Is there anything else you can add? I mean, obviously, Asmath hit a lot of really good points between MVP, business centric, creating that factory model, technology led, and then the conceptual models that follow that on and really get that, where do you think next? But what are some of your thoughts, Rodrigo and Phil?
Yeah, what we're seeing customers do, of course, is essentially we've seen them take two main approaches, right? Particularly, very few companies today start from scratch. They all tend to have a legacy estate that they want to modernize. And essentially what we've seen is the two main approaches. One is where customers start with brand new use cases with a brand new stack, right? So they move a new use case, maybe a new customer application over to Snowflake. They feed it using Informatica Cloud, and they prove to the organization the value and the agility and the speed, et cetera. And from there, they start moving some of the more existing legacy use cases over slowly into this new stack as it happens. And to Asmath's point, it's just the idea of sort of dream big, but start small. We also see customers trying work and really be successful with wholesale transformation, right? So they have an on-premises data estate, and they want to leverage the Informatica Data Management Cloud and the Snowflake Data Cloud. And we do have conversion mechanisms and conversion programs where we can quickly modernize customers. The full estate can be moved from on-premise to the cloud relatively quickly and with a very high ROI return on investments of up to 200, 240%. And so I guess it depends on the maturity, depends on what the companies are, but definitely what you want to do is leverage the agility from Snowflake. And even in the latter case where customers are doing a wholesale modernization, they do use Informatica, things like Informatica Catalog and some other things to understand which use cases make sense to move first, again, to get that early proof of value, show to the organization the virtue of the data cloud and the ability of having data sharing and all these other things as the rest of moves in. And Philip, you may have some more direct experience as well.
The only piece that I would add there, Rodrigo, is just from the standpoint of applications. So while all this is going on here at Informatica, we're also seeing the business person take more of a seat in making some of these decisions. So things aren't happening just inside of the IT infrastructure. It's also about empowering the business, including the business, and driving the business adoption of using some of the assets that come from it, as well as giving them a seat as being part of the governance when that data needs to be modeled and changed. And kind of an example of that is when you take ERP transformations. When you start to look at those, one of the reasons why when we look at the MDM stack is managing the convergence of that data, combining that data, and then being able to publish that data back out. And that could be anywhere from your customer, supplier, vendors, products, locations, but more importantly, your general ledgers. Being able to take each one of those chart of accounts, line them up, make business decisions on them, create mapping so that you can hand it down to the data systems that are moving things into Snowflake, into those areas where BI and analytics is using it, as well as the formal reporting. Giving business the opportunity to participate and curate that data for their use is one of the big areas where I see our customers have really been driving and thirsting and continuing to go forward as we start to go down this modernization path.
Gentlemen, those are great points. In fact, a question that just came up concerning, about the journey. Let me just read off the question and we'll chat about the answers. But what about large hybrid environments? Lots moved to the cloud that can take advantage of some of these new innovations. But what about connecting legacy environments, mainframe, mid-range, and private cloud to these large hybrid environments so that we can take advantage of, let's call it, take advantage of your technical debt, right? The places where we've got a lot of older data as these mid-range, mainframe, and private cloud, leveraging that with the cloud and taking a view of that across. I know we've had some great experience with that, Asma, and another a specialty retail bank in which we used, a number of empowering technologies. But what maybe you could dig into the answer on that one for those.
Yeah. So thanks, Chris. That's a great question. Actually, that digs into more of what that offering is, right? We talk about data estate journey, the modernization, business, technology, and all that. Really, it comes down to one thing: time, value, right? The maturity model, and what is the cost impact and revenue impact. So if I were to put all of them in the box, right? So there is the replatforming. So is the data estate modernization basically Teradata to Snowflake, or a Netezza to Snowflake, a Cloudera to EMR? The answer is no. And you're looking at the cost impact. Then the question would be, is from a revenue impact, is re-engineering real-time events, decision, emotional, contextual decision-making, social analytics, media analytics, is that going to be the cost impact, or does it have the largest, right? So from a time to value standpoint, it has the highest because the reward is high, but the amount of work that you need to do from a plumbing standpoint, that's a lot. Now, there are new offerings that we are already working on. It's like a data marketplace where we are building an analytics sandbox for our customers, looking at building a data exchange where they can publish data to the consumers outside the organization, inside the organization, and look at the revenue impact. That has the highest value, because that's easy to build and it gives you credentials, and it also gives you access to data sets which typically within the organizational boundaries you don't have. And then the other two things that always we talk about is lift and shift, right? Are we going to take the platform as it, for example, from Teradata to Vantage, one of the implementations we have done in the past, or Netezza to Netezza Cloud? Is that going to be the lift and shift, or are we going to help our customers completely greenfield and build a data estate modernization platform for them? So there is no one thing fits all, but you always have to come down to the root cause and look at the time, value, cost impact, and revenue impact in doing these, platform modernization.
I would complement that. Yeah, I would complement that also with a specific example of a customer that, obviously for things like running your ATM network or your tele network, nothing will beat a mainframe in the foreseeable future, right? You still need to have that operational infrastructure to run these large networks of machines, et cetera. And what we've seen is essentially there are now mechanisms where you can couple these sort of very fit for purpose. It's always about the right tools for the job, right? So, and we've seen customers, I cannot name them specifically, but that have essentially coupled their mainframe legacy architecture to things like a Kafka queue or some other messaging mechanism, and then run the analytics on top of Snowflake that way. And that way you sort of get the best of both worlds. You get the reliability of the operational system, but you also get the modern analytics, the data sharing, everything else. And that's kind of what we see. And actually that's the pride of Informatica, is that we enable you to essentially connect these types of scenarios together in a way that, they're going to be reliable, work for you, and for in the future. Sorry, Phil, I interrupted you.
No, that's a good point, Rodrigo. Just wanted to call upon, because I talked about the replatform and reengineering. Really, save costs, right? So it's migrating the workloads from on-prem data warehouse to the public cloud, migrating the policy billing data, for example, if you're insurance tech, to the cloud, and migrate Informatica, the Power Center capabilities onto IICS. Those are all the replatforming where there's a cost savings there. Reengineering will be, like Rodrigo mentioned, enable the business capabilities by trying to get the real-time events, decision-making ability in the systems, and get the cost savings by moving to cloud or equivalent to a next-gen technology and build that data marketplace. Go ahead, Phil.
Yeah, the only piece I would add there, and I think it goes back to the heart of the question, and that is these large hybrid environments. Well, naturally, customers have started in that journey and they are on premise. They're not going to flip a switch. They're not going to move overnight. It's going to be a multi-year journey. So what Informatica gives you the ability to do is, from a technology standpoint and from a platform, as Rodrigo was kind of talking about, we provide that connection capability. So we're able to move data, whether it's sitting on premise, we can move it to the cloud, we can manage it in either state or both. So really it comes down to flexibility in making sure that, one, your strategy and your processes are there, but then two, you have the right technology to support what those strategies are called for. And at the end piece, the last thing that you can afford to do as a company is interrupt business, interrupt the flow of what customers get and the flow of data across the organization. Those are the two kind of heartbeats that you need to make sure you're getting your product out, you're getting your customers supplied, you're accepting their money, and you're turning that cash flow into future decisions and future investments. So all of these things have to work together, and a hybrid environment is just the nature of large companies moving to a better architecture and modernizing over time. It doesn't happen overnight. It's a journey. And in that journey, you need to make sure you give the most flexibility that you can as you start to continue to plan how you're going to go down that path. And that's where Informatica, from a technology leader standpoint, comes in and providing that capability.
And Phil, to the journey map, it's a so let's say it's an average journey we have seen, depending upon whether if you're Fortune 500 or Fortune 100, between 3 to 5 years. So let's talk about 3-year journey. So we at Paradigm, what we do is we jumpstart, strengthen the data and platform foundation between 3 to 9 months, right? This is where you build strong data and platform foundation, modernize your resources, focus on scalability, get all those nicks and knacks addressed. And the second piece is the scaling fast, right? That is 1 to 1.5 years, where we modernize data foundations and evolve new AI, ML capabilities on top of the foundation that we built. And the final one is the 2 to 3 years, which is where we say the growth phase, right? The growth phase, where we realize advantage of full scale of the execution and a higher level of cognitive services using machine learning and deep learning.
Yeah, Asmath, actually, you just hit on the next question that came up was, what is the average length of, what's the time to value that you can get out of doing the data modernization? Both, because there's a hybrid aspect, as the first question asked, and then there's the full transformation, but there's that, the combination. So anything either Phil or Rodrigo would like to add to that question? What the average time it takes to get to value for modernization?
Well, I think from my standpoint, we look at it from a technology standpoint, being able to provide those cloud services. So from an elastic standpoint, you purchase what you need, you use what you need, and you ramp up as you need. But it should be, the idea is we're no longer having to go through the old days of, let me get that disk in the mail. Let's go over there. Let's install it on a server. Let's make sure that we got the right OS that's sitting behind it. Let's make sure that I have a web. All of that's done with. Now we've lifted that to a modern architecture where now it's a service. So really what you're talking about doing is finding the right services to support your business need as you start to move down that journey. So we see speed increasing tremendously because of software as a service versus the on-prem installation, upgrade, maintenance, all the other pieces that kind of drag and make some of those projects work a little bit more slow. When you start to move into that cloud paradigm, so to speak, you definitely are able to speed up and utilize innovation a lot faster, which helps you move your information there quicker.
Yeah, and just to maybe give a data point to what Phil is talking about, we do have an example of another customer that I cannot name. It's a Fortune 100 manufacturer out of the US Midwest that was trying to move from a legacy on-premise CDW to Snowflake, and using our modern data loading capabilities, what we call mass ingestion. We closed the deal with them in February last year, and by March, April, they were running at hundreds of billions of records a month into Snowflake, and they've matured that, and they've actually were able to avoid a renewal that was pending on them from the legacy EDW. And so, we reckon that, to Phil's point, that's the biggest advantage that you get from cloud. I want to emphasize it again, is that agility, that speed, right? You don't have to worry about all the things below the waterline in terms of all that maintenance. You just, go to the value as quickly as possible. And so we're particularly proud of that example, and just how quickly they were able to ramp that up and essentially move to cloud.
Yeah, that's a great example, Rodrigo. One of the other questions that's kind of popped up is, through these modernization efforts, how is the data protected, and can everything be encrypted? Obviously, in a full modernization, that there's one answer, and there might be a slight answer different in the hybrid opportunity. But who'd like to jump on that question?
I mean, I think from my standpoint, yes, data at rest should be encrypted, and data in transit should be encrypted. But that, at the application level, I think you make the decisions on whether you need masking or you don't masking. Are you talking about personal information or not? But that's what, from an Informatica standpoint, when we're moving data, especially using our Informatica cloud service, we have a secure agent that's going to be put in behind the firewall of the company, and that's going to allow for encryption to be able to be managed to make sure that data does stay secure. So that's what we do at Informatica, is we want to make sure that data stays in a secure state. Asmath, anything you want to add there?
Yeah, that goes back to the modernization, right? Where you're going to be sailing fast in 1 to 1.5 years in that journey, where you're trying to look at what assets you have on the ground. So security is a very big, important topic that comes along whenever we talk with enterprise architecture teams, and they're looking at the platform and the inbuilt security that comes with it, and they're looking at adding a third-party system like a Immuta or a SecurePy, right? So that they can basically do more data encryption depending upon which domain you are in. Suppose you are in the payer, pharma, that kind of industry in the healthcare space, a lot of PII data. You're looking at customer-centric data that need a lot of data masking and data encryption. So the hold your own key concept comes very well if you were to put a third-party layer on top of it, from apart from what the platforms have to provide. So there is the other layer of security cybersecurity folks are talking about, right? As they build data engines, which are going to be much more rule-based, building that foundation and looking at security. And that conversation comes almost every other day when we talk to a customer about our data modernization journey. So security is something we typically have a point of view, and we have partnerships, and we have cybersecurity experts who can help build on top of what the standard platforms have to offer.
Excellent, great points, gang. Hey, gentlemen, we've really captured a lot of topics well. We have about 8 more questions, but we're about at time. So you guys have really touched on every component here, whether it's what is data estate modernization, what's the urgency, why is it important to the CFO, how Informatica, Snowflake, Paradigm accelerate, scale, and de-risk data modernization, and where to start the journey. So applaud you all for excellent discussion around that. The goal really, as we see it, is the opportunity to leverage each of this partnership, or the partners that we've talked about here, between Informatica's platform with integration, sharing, mastering, and governance, with Snowflake, centralization, sharing, and marketplace, and Paradigm Consulting to bring it all together quickly and effectively, and reducing the risk. So, really the key question is, what's next, right? So the recommendation right before what's next really breaks into a few parts. First off, introspection. The folks on the call today, at least the folks attending, it's a great opportunity to question how you're doing things today. What are the old legacy processes that could be enabled into new processes for the finance team? The folks that are at the crossroad of information to drive that art of the possible discussion with their business partners. So first is introspection. Second is reach out to this team for a maturity assessment to gain a true understanding of where you are or where you could be. Are you at the what happened mentality and why did it happen? Or are you at the what can be mentality, and really driving forward with thought leadership and those kind of things. Also, look to partner with us. In partnering with us, we can execute a business impact workshop. And this is particularly effective in identifying the challenges of data modernization to get there, and especially as we talked about those hybrid environments and that technology debt. But also it creates a lot of shareholder buy-in and really gets folks interested and excited about the journey that you're starting on. Lastly, if there's a particular solution that we've discussed here that piques your interest, Snowflake Marketplace, Informatica Finance 360, Paradigm's solution for digitizing the CFO's office, let us know, and we'll gladly demonstrate the value to you via webinar, or Zoom, or whatever great way we can connect these days. Gentlemen, thank you again for your insights, your collaboration, and your thought leadership here in this discussion. Really appreciate you all. Folks out there in the audience, thanks for your time. We'll also display some of these questions through our LinkedIn presence that we see some of the questions you may have asked that we didn't get to. Thank you all. Make it a great day.